All right, welcome back to Finding Truth Podcast here on Unscripted Truth TV. Logan here, back with you guys for another week. Episode 87 coming at you. Obviously, we're short a man here. We're man down, but I don't think it's anything to fear. I'm sure Austin's doing just fine. I think he just got caught up with some other things he's doing, and we've kind of given a little bit of a warning the last few episodes about the potential change here, but we're gonna roll with the punches, and we're still looking to get guests and guest hosts and things of that nature set up and going. So that's still on the table. So I'll say it early and often. If you guys are looking to join or become a guest host, or maybe have like just a guest spot during one of our shows, please do hit us up in the comments or the scrolling email below. It's also in the description as well. But yeah, without too much ado about that, we will be having probably one of our shortest episodes yet. I'm stretched a little thin myself, so it would help me to get done with this while I still have a little bit of light out. But anyway, guys, hope you guys are doing well. This will be kind of more like a headline perusing with a lot of opinion. It's like an op-ed, a live op-ed. Well, not live, but for me it is. But a video op-ed of just kind of the state of things after one of the bigger stories this last week was just stuff no one should be paying attention to, but we'll talk about why people shouldn't be paying attention to it because of the what effects these things have. But I want to talk about the whole Chud the Builder shooting, and I say that like that because I have never heard of this person ever. Apparently he was had a huge following, and he's part of like the outside edge of these, I guess, semi-political factions of that stream and create content creators, you can call them. But yeah, I have never heard of him. Didn't know what he did. Never even seen a clip. But supposedly there was a shooting. He had to shoot somebody in supposed self-defense. And this is a guy who I suppose goes around and incites people to, try something with him. It's very similar to like the little dweeby streamers. You probably heard of Neon or what's that other guy's name? I know there's another guy that was that same way. Here, let me just look up some ugly, dumb streamers. Jack Doherty. He would go around trying to fight people with his big black bodyguard right behind him. And these are just things I barely know about. I do not take in really content from any of these people. There's also the Clav guy who does the what's it called? The mewing and mogging or whatever it's called, where you try to make your jaw super pronounced, and fit maxing that's what it's called. But he'll go around and just with his little entourage and try to woo unsuspecting girls away from their boyfriends out in public. And some people view that as a helpful service that he's doing for society, because these girls do be trifling, but it really is just an obnoxious thing. And that's not to say that it doesn't expose another side of society that is sick. There's a lot of sickness in our society, and what's funny about these streamers is they do expose a sickness outside of the sickness that they have, which I'll be talking about this Chud the Builder situation. Uh, okay, get out of here. What is this? Okay. This fine gentleman, distinguished gentleman, looks like a robber baron, looks like a train baron or something from the 1800s. But anyway, supposedly, he incites people, to get animated and crazy, to drive up viewers and drama and with his live streams or content or whatever by saying the N word to black people and things of that nature and calling them chimps. What is it? Something like that. Once again, even in the lead up to this, I haven't watched the clip. I was going to when I got home, but I never ended up doing that. Just trying to figure out who this guy is. But there was an altercation where he supposedly had to shoot somebody in self-defense, like I said. And he ended up shooting his own arm too. Very weird situation. From what I could tell, there's zero footage, zero evidence. And, just like all the other stories they tell you, there's never any concrete evidence or anything of the sort to back up these claims from the narratives you see in the news. But I'll digress. I'll play devil's advocate a little bit because that's not really the purpose of the mentioning this. But like I said, these kind of stories, they expose our two sides of the coin. They expose the hubris on both sides. And I think what people cling to his content for, first of all, anyone that follows streamers of the sort, these aggravators and people like that, it's one thing to be like, even if it's playing video games, there's a niche out there for everybody, and there's a different avenue for everybody to. It's not everything is evil. You could broaden out far enough to where you could say video game streaming is evil. I think you could broaden things enough to put that in the box that it's not good. I think the further out you go, you're going to say video game streaming is a net negative. So in that regard, it might be put in the evil box. Let's just say evil. And even though that's like an inflammatory word itself, we'll just the bad box, whatever. But, there's levels to it. There's people that have, it's about intention and intent at the end of the day for most people. And, it depends on, who the person is that is delivering the content and what their intent is. Before I'll ship you downriver without a paddle based on what kind of content you guys are taking in. But anybody that watches like these people propelled on the world stage, these neons, they're all stupid names too. I mean, Chud the Builder, what? That's a name of somebody? What is going on here? Like, that's so dumb. It sounds ridiculous. It's not even funny. I don't even get the point of it. Maybe it's just meant to be aggravating. The name is even meant to aggravate you. But Sneeko, it's kind of like on the back of Andrew Tate too. The shock value. Aiden Ross. Who's the? These names, dude. Who's the big? Oh man, it just goes in and out. I mean, was it Speed? I Show Speed. He's doing like wrestling now. He's been kind of controversial somewhat. Who's the Kai Cenat? Yeah, I mean these major, and then there's the female ones as well. Pokimane. There's that one from a while back, Sniper Wolf. Anyway, this isn't about indexing every single one. I'm just saying there's a large swath of these, top, I guess you can call them like the top 1% of the streamers that hold this, that use a negative manipulation technique to get their view, to rope people into viewing them and taking in the drama. And it's kind of one of those things where if you know who you're dealing with, you know that it's about, they can go to bed at the end of the night and sleep like a baby because they didn't make you guys do anything. That's that's this like weird thing, is they didn't make anybody do anything. And so that rationale for them is it's of your own free will. It's kind of like, in the broader sense, that's what we're dealing with at a psychological level in every aspect of our life. We're dealing with a psychological warfare that gets us to do things. It's that old quote that's like, I don't know the quote. I shouldn't have said quote, but it's the old adage, somewhat like, it's easier to, convince somebody to do something if they think it's their own idea, type of deal, rather than trying to convince them of your idea. It's better to, convince them of an idea, and then they'll think it's their idea. Because it's a very true thing. I'll try to look up the quote before the end of this. Maybe I'll put it up on as a banner here, because I definitely butchered that, but hopefully I get the point across. But it is a psychological trick, and it manipulates these people into following, liking, emulating. That's the big one I kind of want to focus on for the bulk of what I'm trying to get across here, is the emulation of these people, because that is severely hindering our society. And what these streamers are able to do is it's a network. They have a network, and they set the new social standard. And look around, people, the social standard shit. So it's up to us, and it's up to the parents, and it's up to free thinking, free-willed individuals that don't buy into the bullshit, which, these kind of people are few and far between from what I've seen. But either that be that as it may, it takes those people to combat this, and so that these people don't feel like they have a chance to have a platform the way they do. I don't know how much of it is too far gone. I don't know how much of it will be AI by this time next year. So we're just cooked, because already we're saturated with this content. I can only imagine when the AI kicks in, and you're going to have, racist AI, you're going to have sexist AI, you're going to have gay AI. We talked about gay AI already. It'll be that for sure. But yes, this new social standards, where it's like, you look at the kids, how the kids are acting and talking nowadays, and who they're trying to emulate. These are really piss poor examples. And, it's our own faults at the end of the day for allowing our kids to be exposed to it at a young age. And it's not even about the exposure, really. It's about them not having a foundation of knowledge and understanding of the world to combat it themselves. We can try to fight all of our kids' battles all we want. That doesn't work. They need to be able to understand and fight their own battles, or else they can, easily fall into the same things that everyone else does. It's something I tell my son all the time. Now, from my perspective, I consider my children very special because I'm their father, I'm their parent. I consider them very special, but I give them a take that is much more a realist take, to say that, for example, the former house that I lived at, my son was going to school at the time, physically going to school. He only does it online now. He was physically going to school, and I'd walk him to the bus every single morning and pick him up from the bus every afternoon. And unfortunately, I lived in a terrible side of town of Portland, and there was, homeless camps and drugs and small fires being lit almost daily, right behind the store where the bus stop was. And of course, the school doesn't check on where their bus stops are, or, the bus drivers don't, report on their findings at the bus stops. They're just doing their job. Everyone's just doing their job, walking around, bumping into crap as usual. Once again, not the point of this conversation, but it's something that aggravates me to this day. But the things I would see at this bus stop, it was truly sickening. And to the point where, of course, this was after the bus had already pulled off, but I was trying to convince this guy that he needs to get moving on. There was a bum. They would park their cars there, and the cars would become derelict, and you know put on blocks because the tires get stolen, everything gets stolen, the hood's gone, everything's gone, and they're just sleeping in it, doing drugs in it. And I was telling this guy that he needs to leave, that it's like weird that you're parking like right at the bus stop where, these kids are going to school. And the altercation, I had to pull a knife on him because he tried to get in my face. And there's multiple, I've seen people just they would, pull blankets over their head and just be lighting up their crack pipe. This is feet away from where children are, waiting to get on a bus to go to school. Oh, golly gee, did I forget where I was going with this? Oh, yes, yes. So I was telling my son, he was able to see these drug addicts, these, negative swaths of society, the less fortunate, even sometimes, I don't think every single time the people were like, scum of the earth, although there's a lot of them in that group. There are some that are probably down on their luck and things of that nature. But the point I was trying to make to him is, when he sees that, I don't fill him up saying like, you'll never be that. You're better than that. You can't be that. That's not how you teach. That's not how you impart wisdom into another soul. And what I told him is, I would tell him anecdotes of my life and the fact that, at certain times I was probably one action away from falling into that, like one action away. And before I knew it, I'm sure it would have been a lot easier for me. And I could have, seen myself falling into, that kind of lifestyle that leads you on the street, waiting for drugs to be delivered, and, RV to RV, tent to tent, town to town, until you die on the street and someone has to come and clean you up. And so I was telling him, it's just like, I think you're very special, Adrian. I think you have the capabilities of becoming something really good for yourself. I think that you can do good for this world, but you can be that. If you want to, you can be that. That is not something that you are better than. Unless you have to make yourself better than. You're not just inherently better than. And so it's something that we need to impart in our kids and let them know and understand that there's work to be done to avoid, I guess I'll just say, the evils of this world. Dystopia is here and it's all around us. And that lifestyle, when you're outside of it, you look in on it and you're just saying like, who would want to live like that? But I'm realist enough to know that there's an odd appeal to it as well. And I think it all has to do with mental fortitude and the thought of freedom and like I'm getting a little lost for the words I'm reaching for here, but it's like self-autonomy. And I think the easiest things we can do for ourselves and say we did this are bad things, or things that are net negative, that are bad for our lives, maybe even bad for other people's lives around you. Those are the easiest things that we can do and still say, I did it. And so it's that affirmation you get in your head where you're tricking yourself in your head saying, I'm in control of this situation because I'm the one, I'm doing what I'm choosing to do these things, and nobody else is making me do these things. I have this autonomy about me. That's a lot harder to do with, say you want to go on a vacation, or say you want a new car or something like that. Those types of things, those type of affirmations take work and dedication. The ones that don't take any work and dedications, the ones where you can just beg on the street or panhandle or, dig through trash and whatever, you can, those things are available at all times. That lifestyle is available at all times. And the fact that our world and our country allows you to just, pick up and leave the society. And the only time it allows you to do that is to become a pariah. That should tell you about, what kind of society that we're dealing with. But back to the youth and from their perspective, they're not getting the guidance they should be getting at home. They're not getting it at school. I've seen this firsthand, the drop off in attention towards students and the lack of teaching of principles in school. This is all back to when I was in school, and this has just only gotten worse in the years since. But it's becoming a much more formulaic thing. And what's funny is they'll hide behind, like, what's the word? Like, almost, on here we've talked about like the cute culture and how like being nice and cute and things of that nature have actually become like a hindrance to society, and usually even in your personal lives, thinking things are, trying to be cute all the time or trying to be nice all the time doesn't really get across the things that need to be gotten across in your daily life. That's kind of where schools are at. They're walking this fine line, this government federal line, where it's all about these ridiculous programs. Of course, we talked about the LGBTQ and even the the racial lines that they draw in school, and they walk those lines. And so from the outside, they can say, oh, we are progressive, or, we're looking out for these kids. And at the same time, it's like under the table there, they got they got some candy for them to sucker them in to be on their side. It's very much so like where you will set a boundary and they'll go behind your back and break it. But in the eyes of the government, they are more equipped. I think in their eyes, they're more equipped with their robotic programming of our kids than the parents are of their rearing of their kids in their personal home. And that's an anecdote that I promise you that is how they feel, because I have met that roadblock where I have been deemed kooky for my not wanting my son to participate in certain aspects of school. Like I'm like behind, like I'm, in the past, or I'm, living. It's very underhanded how they deal with our kids. And once again, that can also be its own episode. But very much like schools, these streamers have a stranglehold on our kids' mental acuity, and what they they look at our world through the lens through their phone, and what they're watching on their phone is complete garbage. And so that garbage, multiplies. It basically vicariously lives through them. These losers, like you see on the screen, their intent lives through them, the kids that go out and emulate them and go and talk like them. It's as easy as the vernacular too. Vernacular is a huge thing. The way we talk is the identifier of what our social standard is. It's very clearly throughout history that has been the case. And if you look at where we're at now and you look at how people talk, I think there's a pretty neat little correlation you could follow. But these hyper popular streamers, the quick money aspect is a thing that ropes these kids in. The carefree lifestyle, the fact that they're just out doing whatever they want, pranking with thousands of dollars at their disposal to just play a mindless prank. the celebrity attachments and endorsements, the the highfalutin lifestyle, the women, it's very obviously from the outside looking in, and with a long enough understanding of where our world is and how it functions, it's clear to see it's this demonic trap set for people. But it's like, even without association, it makes my blood boil that people fall into this trap. And it's not that I'm entirely, it's very hard because, on this, if you guys have followed us for long enough, where me and Austin kind of stand on this. We are much more advocates of personal responsibility. And to that end, it's up to us to keep out falling into the trap. Yet we also know that it is a subconscious manipulation and psychological operation to get us to fall into said trap, and that not everybody has the tools by the time they're manipulated. It's like, I had to teach myself a lot of it. Nobody came up to me and gave me any clues or hints. Nobody. I had to know and realize the bullshit for myself. I had to work out the bullshit. And it really is really easy to do, but it's also extreme. It might be really easy to do, but putting waking up from your nightmare or waking up from your dream to realize you're living a nightmare, that's a lot harder to do than continuing to live in your dream. And the dream presents itself as, you can live your life, walk around, bump into stuff, press the number, push the button, make the cog spin and turn, and hopefully eventually you'll die with a little bit of something to your name. And that's obviously there's upper and lower limits to that dream, but more often than not, people can achieve that base level dream. And that is a very alkaline life. It's a very base level life. And rather than people jumping off free jumping and off the cliff into, the clouds where they can't even see the ground, they'd much rather just, stay on the cliff. And with that comparison, that makes sense. Of course, you're going to get people who are also that's not even adding in the factors like kids and family and wives and husbands and things of that nature that also contribute to people staying in their lanes, if you will. But at the end of the day, wives, husbands, families, kids, adults, sons, daughters, dads, moms, uncles, they can all wake up to this shit and wake everybody else, or do their best to wake everybody else up and get them on the program and break out of it together. It doesn't have to be a solo ride. There is some evidence to suggest that it's just impossible to wake people up that can't be woken up. And I think to that end, everybody will be woken up eventually. And obviously I'm speaking about waking up into the manipulation of our world and realizing that, we're living a life that is not what we are supposed to be living. I think a lot of people know that. And that's another thing we've talked about on the podcast a lot, is that people have that ringing in their ear. The phone is just ringing off the hook. It's never going to stop ringing until you pick it up. Pick that damn phone up and listen to that phone tell you, wake the fuck up, get up. It's over. This dream is over. Wake up to reality. That doesn't mean you have to change every single thing that's in your life ever and ever. I'm sure a lot of it needs to be changed and should be changed. That doesn't mean I have changed everything in my life. That doesn't mean I've, sprouted into a whole nother individual. But it does mean you stop giving your mental energy to these systems that have been oppressing you and everybody else, and stop spreading the bullshit at work. Stop spreading the bullshit at school. Stop spreading the bullshit everywhere you go. Stop participating in the garbage game that this world plays, and get with the program. It very well could be a personal heaven that we are headed to. A person, and I say heaven just as a broad term. If there is something more for us, it very well could be a personal journey for each and every one of us. It's not something that we can take a pool of people with and say, oh no, I told them all the same thing and they all said they got it, so we're all in, we're all good to go. It very well could be individually, we have our rights and our wrongs. We have our dark moments that we know in those moments that we're doing something wrong. We know in those moments when we're doing something right. And there's a clear and evident understanding in those moments when you do something morally right and morally wrong. We all know that the shame that you feel after doing something morally wrong. And yeah, so to that end, the next generation needs to understand these things so that they can have a clearer understanding and a clearer way forward and a better way and a way to navigate, what they take in on a daily basis, especially with, and this is without even ranting about how shitty parents are nowadays. That was kind of like what I was going to go, but that might be another episode as well. But the amount of leeway that is given to kids to, act like adults at such young ages and have that autonomy without any responsibility and without any wisdom about what to do with that autonomy is ridiculous. And it's a cop out, and it's lazy, and it's part of that cute culture. It's part of that nice culture that we talk about that is a cancer on our society. There's obviously an upper and lower level. There's, niceness that causes bad things, and there's also, bad things that cause bad things. And so, with those two comparisons, people will say, oh, well, at least they're nice. It's just like, no, that's actually another trap. The nice trap is another trap. You get trapped by people who are nice. And it's just like outwardly facing nice people aren't always doing something nice. There's so many levels to the psychological manipulation that goes on with people. And, from cradle to grave, that's what you're up against. And you need to arm yourself with the knowledge about what it is. The psychological manipulation, there are so many levels to it and tiers to it. Not everything is going to be like a God, in your head, get out of my head. No, it's not like that. But you know what? Common door-to-door salesmen can make, from, if you take a step back and you have the knowledge that I'm talking about, and you watch an interaction between a salesman and a layman, just a normal person that thinks that the world is fair, that the world has rules and limits and things of that nature that are going to be imposed by everybody. The naivety that people have nowadays. You watch a car salesman sell a car, or a door-to-door salesman sell something to somebody. Watch how easily they manipulate the person, like on each and every level, each and every aspect of each and every step of their sales pitch is a manipulation on that person to get the most money out of them. They don't care about the product they're selling you. That's not their job to care about you and their product that they're selling you. That their job is to sell you the product. They're going to do it in the most efficient way possible. The most efficient way possible isn't getting to know each and every person by name and becoming friends with them, but that's how they present themselves, and they're good at what they do. And I think we all know kind of what I'm talking about, or could have an anecdote, looking back, that we've had to deal with a salesman or something of that nature, to where, you kind of blinked and all of a sudden your card's out and you're just like, wait, what? I guess I'm buying this. Okay. Well, I guess this must be good. Well, no, it's not. It's proof that you don't have the mental fortitude to go against that level of, manipulation, psychological manipulation. There's, like I said, there's many levels to it. There are minor levels and there are major levels. Obviously, the major levels would be psyops like this Chud the Builder and all these other streamers. But psyop aside, it's important to understand that it's a psyop. Never mind the psyop existing. The psyops are always going to exist. That is, it's kind of the idea of like trying to convince someone who's really into sports that it's all rigged. It's just they know the proof. They've seen it. They know everything's rigged. They know their favorite players have come out and talked about how it's rigged, but they'll just ignore it and they'll just put it to the side because it's more convenient to just continue on and like what you like, and it's rewarding. The world rewards you for that behavior, whereas there's usually some negative side effects for those people who act against the world. But even if it's not negative, you don't get the reward anymore. There's no treat at the end of class. There's no, you don't get the affirmation. And this new generation of kids, these last few generations of kids, this is going to be rough because they're affirmation starved, the right affirmations. And the affirmations they've been getting are from digital sources, and they got there first, well before these parents could ever get there. Maybe these parents realized too late. Well, it's too late. It's too late. Maybe not too late, but it's late. And you're now, way behind the devices that you handed your kids. You're way behind. They own more authority than you own in your kid's life. And you're going to have to combat that in order to get some semblance of authority back in your kids' lives. And that's saying that's assuming that the adults even want to, because those adults are affirmation starved and they're looking for affirmation online. So it's like the world can change within 2 generations. That's another quote. There's another quote that says something very similar to that you can turn the tides of an entire nation in only 2 generations, because it's like the first generation, you set up the manipulation, you set up like right now we're dealing with adults that have lack of affirmation, positive affirmations from human sources that actually care about them. Instead, they're getting these affirmations from online sources that show them a terrible lifestyle and convince them to emulate these terrible lifestyles. And then those adults grow up and they have no sense of righteousness or morals, and they get to humping like bunnies, and they have 3 or 4 kids, and those kids, you think they're going to grow up with a bunch of positive affirmations from the adults that don't think positive affirmations are important because they didn't get them? No. So boom, 2 generations later, those kids are going to come up saying the system's screwed. Who cares about this? I don't want to deal with this. Never mind that. If they're even thinking about it, it's not even something they care about. It's not even something they realize is an issue, because it's kind of like the test tube theory. It's just like you are what you're born into, whether it's a white room or this world. You're going to take on the characteristics that's imprinted on you. And these are some tough characteristics coming up, guys. These are tough. And it's not going to bode well. I can promise you that. And, I'm talking about 2 generations down the line. Just wait till 3 or 4 or 5 generations down the line, 3 more generations. You're not going to recognize it, and you're not going to want to recognize it. If you wake up in that world, good luck. Good luck, because that's going to be a tough nut to crack at that point. So we better get cracking now, because we don't have long. This system has been in effect long enough, and we're to the point where free thinkers are so few and far between that the resistance is dwindling. So we really need to find a way to, work these things out in the home with our kids. If you are a teacher that cares, be a teacher that cares. I'm not, I would like to throw out the baby with the bathwater when it comes to most federal programs, including school. But like I said, it is about intent. I've had good teachers in my life. Funnily enough, the ones I remember being my favorite teachers, they were all like, what's the word? They didn't teach me good enough. They were, they're not substitute teachers. I mean, they would substitute teach sometimes, but they were like the one I'm thinking of was like a sit-in teacher who, I had a math teacher, but then he also was like a math teacher who would just sometimes teach math and she wouldn't. It was very interesting. There's like dual teachers, but I can't think of the damn word. Yeah, my favorite teacher of all time was this, like, let's just call it a substitute math teacher. And so yeah, funny enough that the ones I felt like cared the most and actually saw the student for who they were people who were not truly employed by the school in full-time work. So maybe they still had a little bit of their morality attached to them. But yeah, it's getting rough out there, that's for sure. And it's only going to get, these stories are only going to get more and more prevalent. They've already been super prevalent. There's been several global news headlines about streamers doing this and doing that, and it only gets worse. It only gets worse. And it's crazy to think that we're in the precipice. Yeah, it's been going on, and yeah, it's bad, but this is only the start. This is not what moves a nation. What moves a nation is what's coming, and what's coming is going to be so hard for people that are awake to deal with, that you better just wake up and deal with it now. I'm telling you right now that the longer you let this thing fester, the harder and harder and harder and harder it is to deal with. So you might as well deal with it now. And I'll leave it at that. But I did want to touch on one more kind of larger headline. You got Ebola breaking out in Uganda. Of course, it's Africa. Of course, let's see. In fact, didn't Bill Gates specifically target Uganda? I might be tripping. Yes. Bill Gates and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation focus on Uganda through extensive investments in global health, agricultural development, and financial inclusion. Now, keep in mind, that's just some bullshit they put on the top, but realize also they were doing the whole GMO mosquitoes and, paying these people to go stand in nets with millions of mosquitoes to be bitten to see what happens, things of that nature. We talked about this, I think, in our first episode ever of this podcast. We might have talked about that on the very first episode. I believe we did. First or second. I think it was the first, though. But, of course, this happens in Uganda, right where Bill Gates has been messing with the infrastructure or lack thereof in Africa. It's weird. My whole life, it's just like, what can happen in 30, almost 40 years? It's just like, how is Africa not what's funny is like, I appreciate the different standard of living in other countries. I really do. Certainly what we're doing in America ain't it. This is not it. Technocracy is bullshit. Everything concrete, everything square, everything brutalist, is that what it's called? Feudalist, brutalist. that is not the, I hate it. I'm so glad to have, the acreage that I have and the trees and the nature surrounding me, even though I live off of a road and, things of that nature. But anyway, clearly what we're doing in the West, people like to call it, in the modernized world, is not the right way either. It is weird to see that the standard of living in most African, or in certain African countries, is just still so low. And what I mean by that is just like, God damn, dude, just figure out the water really quick. Like, I guarantee you in Africa, you can spring water. Like, why couldn't you spring water? It's everywhere. Water's everywhere. And I'm not, I don't want to sound like too like ignorant of the situation. I'm not that ignorant of it. It just seems like the manipulation. And if you look at in these what's considered third world countries, look at what's going on over there. Everybody's got a smartphone. I'm telling you, all these Africans got smartphones, but they can barely, drink. They don't have clean water to drink. It's, the manipulation is every single place, no matter what. There's no better or worse than, really. The job is being worked on to completion as we speak. And the rules of this world, the Catholic Church, these religious institutions, Jesuit order, down to like the systems that hold the narrative, the Smithsonian, NASA, all these, the news media, obviously, all these things are the lens we see the world through. And, even me, I guess I am speaking through some ignorance. I've never been to Africa, but it's amazing to me that they're able to keep a civilization so down, in my opinion. Now, I'm not saying that the people in Africa want to be up. I'm not saying up and down is good or bad. I'm saying up as in structurally significant, or down as in structurally insignificant. They more than likely prefer to stay low maintenance, is a better word, a more endearing word, which I appreciate. The low maintenance. I like I've said, I've said multiple times, I think I'd make a pretty damn good derelict human. I think I could go out into the woods and figure it out. I'm not saying I would survive till I'm 80. I'm just saying I think there's a good chance that I have the willpower and the understanding and the willpower mostly to figure things out. I do have a good amount of ingenuity and things of that nature. Not to say I've ever done it. I'm not like experienced woodsman, but I do think that I have the wherewithal to become one over time. And I have a sneaking voice in my head that makes me want to, not because what I have is not everything I want. It's just like, it's still there regardless. I feel like I could just run out into the woods and figure it out, and it'd be a decent life. But yeah, so that was a long spiel. You might even be just like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? What's going on in Uganda? But yeah, there's supposedly a Ebola outbreak, and they do this every few years. Some sort of a virus, malaria, Ebola. There'll be a scare out of Africa, and it's always like specific countries involved. That way, there's a blame game associated with it. There's a way to say, ooh, ew, Africa, ooh, Uganda, that's the AIDS place, that's the malaria place, that's the Ebola place. Ooh, ew, this Spain, ew, the plague, ew, not Spain necessarily, but like provinces of Spain, they'll say, ew, that province, that's where the plague happened. Ew, that, that's just how they do things. There's got to be like a boogeyman and a place the boogeyman lives. But yes, let's go back to some of the headlines about Ebola. They're saying 60 some odd people have died. But they just recently, as of today or yesterday, declared a global health or a public health emergency, and called it an outbreak. So very similar. This is right on the heels of hantavirus. Oh, there it is. They found it. It's a carnival balloon. What do you know? And why does it got to look like a mosquito? Come on. Come on. That's a mosquito. See the little eye and his little antenna, and it's got a big proboscis here. Proboscis, whatever it's called. 80 deaths now. It was 60 last I saw it. Big old 80 though. I'm sure that there's gematria attached to all of this. Zach's covered it. I have not caught up on his video though, and to that end, I'm sure Richard's covered it. So please do check these channels out, because they'll give you the spiel on like the ritual behind the narrative. I'm just kind of like keeping it to the narrative at this moment in time. I might look into this more deeply though. But really just they give us these health scares and they index our behavior. There's ripples everywhere. For the people that it is affecting right now, I'm sure their lives are drastically changing, and they're going to be forced into a specific way to live because of this outbreak preparedness. They're going to, the WHO is going to come in and, change the status, their standard of life even more. And they're going to see how those people react, and they're going to notch that down. Look at how they react. Look at how did they react last time? This is similar to how they reacted that time. So if we do this to this many people, we can get this reaction. Well, in the same vein, the people throughout the world that are picking up on this story, how are they reacting? How is the public reacting? Is there an outcry for support for Africa or for Palestine or for Ukraine or for Venezuela, or for, you see what I'm saying? The list goes on and on and on and on and on. And they'll index where we're at. Who the hell are you? Fareed Zakaria, bro, you're a straight demon. It's an AI demon right there. Sorry about that. No one deserves to see that, but yeah, they get you on your back foot. They get you in your like feelings about these things rather than a logical understanding of what's going on. And they can speak to you in a different cortex of your brain, one that doesn't allow your opinion to get in the way. It just soaks in information. And when you're just soaking in information without applying logic or thought to it, that is dangerous, because before you know it, that is what you will defend the next time it comes up. And that's why you got people still wearing masks to this day, because the first time they were ever told to wear a mask in their life during COVID, they took in the media, they took in the propaganda without questions, without facts, without any understanding or necessity, just using fear being the reagent it needed to, solidify in their subconscious. And through that fear, they now apply every sickness to need a cloth mask that does nothing, or, even more serious, you can buy the super nice mask and spend even more money and apply more hardship to your life so that you can breathe worse and have even worse health side effects from wearing a mask all day, and also mental health side effects from you're self ostracizing yourself as well. So there's socioeconomic, social, physical, mental deficit you're putting yourself into, all because you intook information without realizing it, basically. That's the goal of propaganda, is to be in your head without you even processing it. And the next time these things come up, we've talked about this several times. This is a level of the psychological manipulation. That's why that's why these kid shows have sexual connotations. That's why they have adult connotations, not even like sexual connotations, not even having to say with like things like 18 and over type stuff. I'm just saying, like, they'll have things they want to program you by the time you're 16, and then they'll have a program for you. Like for kids in school, they're really pushed into a mold. Like their human form goes into a mold, and they kind of know what's going on, but they're prepared to do so because of the things they saw and took in and heard when they were a little kid. And of course, there's always more propaganda, but that early propaganda that seeps into your brain, that's what you fall back on, and you don't question it when it comes up again, because they're the ones that told you. And so when they tell you again, you just say, "Oh, I already know that. Yes, I know what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing because I know what I'm doing, because it's in my head. I must know what I'm doing because I know about it." But it's not because you stuck that information in there purposefully. It's because it got in there with a chaotic agent as the source to, solidify it in your mind. Fear, trauma, happiness, extreme happiness too. These things can skew the way we take in information and what we, and in the future, how we question or don't not question the things that are pretty obvious bullshit. Obviously, we're all past 2020 enough. We're all 6 years past, and now we got the Red Cross out here. Those are some fancy rubber. Yeah, I just fail to. I mean, this is back from 2022. I think if we were taking it completely serious, you would burn the bodies for theatrical reaffirming to everybody that it's that serious. There's no cure. You get it, you're cooked. Last year, 45 people died, so 125 people have died in the last 2 years. It's pretty big. If there was something like that in the US, it would be a lot bigger of a story. Oh, fatalities have risen 65%. Oh, wow. Wonder why. That sounds like the flu numbers in America. Gotcha. Yeah, it's 50-50. You get it? It's 50-50. Seems right. So what I just posted up there, that's King Richard's website, which has like much clean, updated information and posts that he does. I'm not 100% if he's posted on this recently, but there's also his YouTube channel. All these things will be in the description as well. I do post these things in the description if you want to check these guys out, and I really suggest that you do, because they fill in all the gaps in the narrative through not just gematria, but they have their own takes, and what is really cool about it. And of course, I've learned from Zach, but then I've worked with and learned from King Richard too. But he's a great teacher of this too. But what it is the way he goes about it and the wealth of knowledge that he has about it. He's able to kind of delve into the archive. He's able, he has such a vast archive of things that he can sniff the BS. He can see the pattern from a lot further back, than I personally can. I have a different pattern that I see in my years on this earth. Quite a bit older than him, but even at his young age, he's developed the pattern recognition to, you know, proactively and retroactively go back and proactively apply that pattern to what they're doing now and point out how this is the same thing they did this time, and that time. Very much so like Zach can. Zach can as well. But yeah, for a young guy, Richard is definitely a special talent in that regard. But yeah, this is just the next step in the fear mongering, the next step in it's out of your hands. That's the other part of these health crises. They're out of your hands. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? No, how many doctors are there in this world? How many virologists are there in this world? Not enough. You don't know them. Anybody watching, you don't know them. You don't know the doctors. You don't know the virologists. You don't know the pharmacists, pharmaceutical people. You don't know what goes on the in and out of, how they get these, how they combat these outbreaks. You're just the guy who's going to listen to the news and do your best to stay alive because it's out of your hands. That's what they do. They take these things, they're out of your hands. When's the last, what could you do on 9/11? Even if you're in New York, what could you do? Nothing. What can you do about a potential nuke being dropped? What are you going to do about a cruise missile? What are you going to do about any of these things? What are you going to do about invisible drones? What are you going to do? If we don't work together to do something soon, that's going to be the reality for the rest of our existence. And it's already pretty much there. There's nothing we can do about the situations they're telling us are unfolding. So then peel back even more layers, you realize half these things are false flags, if not more. So that's the other side of the coin too, is a lot of these things are just false flags anyway. They're there to affect your mental acuity and fortitude. And like I said, it's the ability for them to push an agenda through your head using fear and other tactics and manipulation it's really goated with the sauce. No, but it definitely works. The issue is it doesn't work if you know what's coming, and not enough people know what's coming. And that's what I hope the people that listen to this channel can get from the things me and Austin have spoke up on, not just obviously sports, but sports is a big deal. Sports is one of the biggest psychological manipulations in our country and of the world too, but especially in our country. Sports, it dominates kids to adults' heads their entire life. It's one of those things where you'll have people talking about aliens, the firmament, aliens, flat earth. And then you tell them, oh, Kobe's not dead, or, they what they do in these sports games is high ritual. They'll be like, no, I really like Ken Griffey Jr., so no, I really liked Michael Jordan, so no, I really liked, insert sports figure here. And it's just one of those things. They can always hold you at somewhere, one or more places to where you'll never peel it all the way back. And that's what's necessary. You got to peel it all the way off. You got to rip that Band-Aid off. And it hurts a lot less to just rip it all off and let that wound heal than to sit there and peel a little bit off and then put it back so it heals. Then you peel it back again, you put it off, and it's not really healing. It's just, it's what's the word? What's it called when they it's like, what's that word? I can't think of it. You know, when they take like, oh, it's like grafting. It's like grafting the Band-Aid to your skin, and then you're just ripping it off over and over and over again. You got to rip that bad boy off all the way. But all that, and I'm still optimistic. I'm optimistic because I have another son on the way right now. I have my fantastic son and my daughter and a great girlfriend and a great, you know, great people surrounding me, and a pretty good situation, all things considered. Some, you know, things that I can, you know, be proud of and am glad to be a part of. And so when I look around and see what I have, it might not be the glitz and the glam and the, you know, what you think you'd get if you watch these retarded streamers, but it's something much more fulfilling, and it's possible for everybody. It's just, you have to be able to identify what you truly want in this world. And if you want to be a degenerate, those avenues are going to open up for you. If you know, when you want to put your minds to something and you want something to come about, those avenues will open up. It's a mental game that we're living in. It's barely physical, really. It really is barely a physical world. Most of the things that we enjoy at the end of the day are mental. So it's only going to get crazier with AI and meta and all that stuff. That's going to be a whole nother story, but more of the same, really. But yeah, guys, let me know what you guys think in the comments. What you guys want to potentially talk about next week. I do have an idea. I do kind of, you know, I've been hinting at it for quite some time now. I do want to kind of get into the, you know, the different, something that I think we have barely touched on this channel. Me and Austin have talked about it in a couple areas, but I don't think we ever made it a themed episode. But I do want to talk about, excuse me, you know, some of the things that some other channels can hook you with. You know, they'll talk about World's Fairs and the hidden history of the world and the America and things of that nature, and Tartaria. Well, I want to touch on it. I want to give my 2 cents on it. I want to tell you what I think things are, whether or not we're living out cataclysms, things of that nature. It's an all-encompassing kind of thought process that I have. So it won't be like so scattered between all of the ideologies, you know, dinosaur, space, all these things. Those things can be included, but they won't, you know, it's not that I need a physics degree to understand this and a paleo geologist degree to understand this and blah, blah, blah. It's really just going to be from my indexed perspective and analysis on the things I've come across, and really the trends of the world's past and present, where I kind of view where we're going and where we've been through the lens of like I said, the hidden history and the things that are, you know, somehow coming to light, whether or not it's the, you know, what our country truly was at the birth of our nation, that we like to call it. That's kind of where I'll probably stick with it. I know it's a global effort to control the narrative and, you know, hide and add things that don't belong to our timeline. But I'll probably keep to America if I ended up talking about this next week. But if you guys have anything to add to it or want me to touch on specifically when it comes to that, or just anything else, hit me up in the comments. Let me get this guy's dumbass face out of there. Let me put my dumbass face instead. Also reiterating, if anybody is gung-ho to have their voice heard on the channel, now's the time. I'd say it'd be a faux tryout for you to come on and join the stream. It's really really easy. It's just come on, talk. We're do an hour and a half or so, and come on here and chit chat about some stuff, give opinions, bring things up, keep the conversation flowing. It's really just, the way me and Austin have talked about it is, it's not really about it's not like a quantitative goal we have set in mind for like the end result or the product of the episode. It's really just like, the different minds and ideas flowing and conversations being had by people and laughing and kind of showing that that's still possible in this world. And I think we've highlighted that pretty well with the guests that we've had so far. We've all hit it off without a hitch at all. I'm talking about King Richard, who came on, and it's just been like wildfire. It's like, yeah, we knew him from like the chat of YouTube channel of Zach's YouTube channel. But it's like, as soon as we actually talked to him, on the channel, and like, it was just so easy. And kind of want that to be something that is kind of highlighted on our channel, that this is something we don't want to lose collectively as a people, as a nation, as a whatever you want to call it, as a species. The ability to bridge the gap with people on things and be able to talk about anything and share our opinions freely and things of that nature. And that's what this channel will be here for. So if you are lured in by any of that, hit us up in the emails, probably the best way. But even then, just throw a line out in the comments if you have to, whatever you feels necessary. And same goes for criticisms, any affectionate messages. They can go through the email, or you can drop them in the comments. Either way. And hopefully that was enough food for thoughts with this whole. There's a couple of. It was really about psychological manipulation in our world, and how 2 different ways they do it. There's a million different ways they do it, but these 2 ways are pretty prevalent right now. Fear and anger. So just don't let it manipulate you in that way. It's okay to feel those feelings, but it's not okay to be overtaken by them to the point where you don't even know that you're being there's a long-term effect to it. Anyway, guys, hopefully you guys enjoyed that, and you give us some feedback on what we should do our next episode on, if what I said sounded good, if you have anything to add to it, and also if you want to join the show. That being said, I hope you guys have a fantastic week, and I will be back. At least I will be back. We'll see if we'll have Austin next week too. But next Sunday, was that the 24th? Okay, so I'll be back the 24th, May 24th. All right, guys, have a great one. Later.